Hello, everyone. This is Film Week, the fourth week live, and I'm your host today, Samuel Teyssier. I'm joined by Jackson Guido
Hello.
and Michael Doerge.
What's up?
Hi. And Jackson Guido is back from his sabbatical.
Yes, I've returned.
His birthday. So
Indeed.
how was your little birthday excursion?
As exciting as a 21st birthday can be in quarantine, but I certainly did the regular things to celebrate. I got myself some alcohol. I consumed said alcohol, and at the end of the day, that's all you need. And but no, some friends actually dropped over some beer by just leaving on my doorstep, which I don't know how legit that is, but I returned home from getting gas and there was just beer on my porch, and I was like, wow, maybe it was the beer fairy or something like that, but definitely exciting. Thank you for asking, and I'm glad to be back into Film Week.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back. And today on Film Week, we're going to be talking about our first look at the Dune adaptation from Denis Villeneuve, and our first look at the whole entire cast. And we also have an update on Martin Scorsese's next film. And we will be discussing our film club discussion from our past week. Blue is the warmest color. And what did you guys watch this week? Me personally, I was mostly watching all the anime films I've missed for a while on Disney Plus. Cars 3, I haven't seen that one. I figured that was the only Pixar film I've never seen, so I figured I'd give it a chance. And some of my friends kind of really like it, surprisingly. And it's not as bad as Cars 2. It's basically the Cars 2 that should have been. And it was a fun time. And the thing is, there's a better ending that was like a deleted ending that is much better, and I wish that we would have had that, but we didn't get it. But it was a fine film. For Pixar, probably a lower tier film for them, but a pretty good average animated film. I also saw on my list, I'll check really quick. I saw Downsizing, which is on Hulu, and it has a really. You've seen it?
Yes, I have seen Downsizing. It's a weird one, right?
Yeah, it's a weird one from Alexander Payne. I'm pretty sure that's his name. He did what's that one with George Clooney in Hawaii? I'm blank. The Descendants. He also did that. The Descendants. He did Sideways with Paul Giamatti. The concept is very interesting. Just they think sustainability to save the planet and to give the world and the humans on it a longer chance to downsize the whole human population, so they would use less waste and create less. And there's upsides and downsides to what happens, but it takes that concept and makes it current. It's a fine film. There's some odd decisions that are made in the second and third act. The first act
very weird decisions.
Yeah, but yeah, I would give it a chance. It's still Matt Damon. I haven't seen Matt Damon in a while personally, but yeah, that came out in 2018. I'm pretty sure, but it was a cool film. But those are the two films I've seen this week. I was catching up on TV since that I haven't seen in a while. But what have you seen, Jackson, on your birthday break?
Well, I actually went on a bit of a documentary binge apart from Blue is the Warmest Color, which we'll get into shortly.
Definitely.
But I watched, oh gosh, now I should look at my list to be sure. I just looked at it to make sure that I had them all down. So Somm, which is a documentary made a few years ago about sommeliers, who are these, the wine experts that you see in restaurants and stuff like that. It's them preparing to take this master sommelier test that only a few people pass every year in the world. It's just crazy, but it's an interesting documentary because you just get to think about how crazy these people are about wine. But it's always nice when you see a documentary about people who are passionate about a subject. I saw the beginning of the Dawn Wall. I haven't finished that one yet, but it's sort of like it came out around the same time as Free Solo, and both have been getting critical acclaim. And it's just the one I hadn't seen yet. So I do like climbing movies. I like the natural excitement that comes with them. So I saw that as well. And those were the main two that I had this week. But yeah, just documentaries in general on Netflix. They have such a good selection. So I've been definitely testing that out. I haven't gotten the chance to try out Quibi yet, and because I haven't heard anything about it, I have to assume that it maybe didn't make as big of a splash as they were hoping for. But I'll be sure this week to tap into it, start my free 90 days, and give you guys a report next week on what Quibi's like and whether or not it is not receiving as much buzz for good reasons or not.
We can do a little side topic after we do our film club discussion about how Quibi is doing in relation to the other streaming services. But Doerge, how was your film watching experience this week? What did you see aside from Blue is the Warmest Color?
Man, I watched Doctor Strange.
Aside from your animated selection, your animated cartoons.
That's I've slowed down a little bit. I ran out of shows to watch. But I watched Doctor Strangelove for the first time last night. That was pretty good.
What's it like? Do you recommend it? I mean, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, if you like like other Kubrick movies like The Shining and stuff like that, just imagine like this is like it's an hour and a half long Kubrick, which makes it really digestible compared to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
So I would highly recommend it. It's really fast paced and it's funny. It's weird. Like it came out in the '60s, but it's actually like really funny in a modern way. I think. I really liked it.
Yeah, a lot of films in that time at least don't translate humor wise to today, but that one still gets me. At least when I saw it, I think last year, I had a lot of fun with it.
You can watch it for free with commercials on Sony Crackle.
Oh, hey, there you go.
I saw it. What else did I watch? I think that's. I'm sure I watched a bunch of other stuff, but I really can't remember right now. But that was the big one. I really enjoyed that one. Oh, I watched the DVD commentary of like the director's commentary of Knives Out. That's enough.
There you go. Is that done by Ryan Johnson?
Ryan Johnson, the cinematographer, Steve Yedlin, and it's also by they have one of the actors who's really good friends with Ryan Johnson. Has been in like all of his films. I forget his name right now. I follow him on Twitter. I don't remember his name. It was mostly him and the actor kind of shooting the shit. It was pretty informative. I enjoyed it.
I'm a sucker for a good DVD commentary, certainly.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson is if there's one thing if you like DVD commentaries, Ryan Johnson does a really good job with them. He a lot of the time it ends up being like very instructional, which I really like. So highly recommend any Ryan Johnson DVD.
I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah. So our film club discussion for the week was about Blues the Warmest Color. It was recommended by our own Michael Doerge. And before the show came live, Doerge had a few words to say about the film.
Yeah.
Just let our viewers know what you were saying about the film.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Jackson, and I just said I didn't realize that I picked a controversial film, I guess. After watching it, and then I read a bunch of like stuff about the director and the actors. It was like it was a controversial film, and I didn't realize that, especially after watching a 10-minute long sex scene. I was like, I wasn't like, I mean, I felt like it felt necessary to the plot. It was just like, I recommended everybody go watch a 10-minute long sex scene, basically, which made me feel a little funny. I wish I could have gave it a little caveat to the audience before I went into it. But
disclaimer, yeah.
I'm just so used to not having to filter myself ever. So, but yeah. But it's still, I really enjoyed the film regardless.
I really enjoyed it too. I thought it was it's an important part of film history. It's one of those that was, I mean, it won the Palme d'Or. It was very controversial when it came out. It was definitely a big step forward in the visibility of LGBTQ filmmaking at the time.
Another thing about it winning the Palme d'Or, which I read about, was that it was usually the Palme d'Or is just given to the director. They actually gave the Palme d'Or to the director and the 2 lead actors, which had never been done, because they felt that their performances were as crucial as the director in that film. I mean, Steven Spielberg has like a big explanation for why they did that, but it's continue. Sorry.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and but I did some research before I saw the film, and I read that they had like 8 hours of footage. I know you usually have a lot of footage coming out of production, but they had extreme amount of footage leaving. So I was just surprised by that. Hopefully it's just not all sex scenes that they had like 4 hours worth. But
I'd read that it took them 10 days to shoot the big one, which just sounds gratuitous. But what you said, Sam, was interesting because that director shot that movie a lot like how they're really big right now. The Uncut Gems, Safdie brothers.
Yeah,
he shoots movies in a similar way to the Safdie brothers in that like dramatic realism. So like, and you can tell a lot. I guess it's about like bringing you into like the character, but it's like basically all close-ups through most of the movie. Like there's not really any establishing shots. Like apparently, like they changed the main character's name during production just because most of the footage they used in the beginning wasn't like, they didn't call action. They were just recording the actress doing things, and everybody called her by her first name, so they just changed the character name, her first name.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that that the actress was named Adele, and it seems like in the casting process, and I read about this a little bit on Wikipedia, so I always take that with a grain of salt. But it seems like this director, he just seems like a weird dude, but he casted mainly, like, obviously their performances and the way that they could portray the characters was a big factor, but he would do weird stuff. Like he would like take them to a cafe and just watch them for a couple hours, like not talk to them, just watch how they looked in this cafe. And based on those sorts of weird exercises, he would decide whether they were right for the role or not. Like it seems like they were muses more so than just like traditional actresses filling a role.
Yeah, I read a bunch of things. His directing style is really strange. He doesn't call action or cut. He just turns the camera on and just kind of they just start doing things. It was interesting you bring it up because I'd read that the main actress, who was 18 or 20 at the time, like never done like a big feature film before. He cast her because he thought the way she ate spaghetti was exactly for the character.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Which, I mean, like, I'm sure that's just like a really like quippy like thing to say, you know, as a director for press stuff, because, you know, clearly like that actress is not just someone who eats spaghetti well. Like she's like, her performance was incredible. You know, like he didn't just look at her and went like, "Huh, this person in this cafe eats spaghetti in a way that I enjoy. Let's cast her in this movie."
Like, it's odd, man. It's a fascinating foreign production because it's so clear even in the shots you look at that it is a product of really some interesting creative streaks, but also it is just, you can tell that it is a labor of, I guess, love. It was meticulously crafted in a certain way, but it's like you don't really know exactly what they were going for, but you know they achieved whatever it is was in his head.
Yeah.
He had a clear picture of what this looked like.
Yeah, he was doing that that Kubrick Fincher style of like method directing, where it's like you do so many takes that the actors just can't tell if they're in character or not anymore.
They don't even know what's going on, man. But yeah, I mean, Yes. So going into the film, I didn't do any research. I know, Sam, you mentioned you did a little bit on the front end.
Yeah.
All I knew was that it had won the Palme d'Or and it came out around 2013, and it was about lesbians. That was all I had going into it. So I was happy that I did that because then afterwards it opened up a lot more. But I mean, how much did you guys really know going into Blue is the Warmest Color?
Exactly as much as you did, Jackson. And it's always in the critically acclaimed section on Netflix, so
Right.
it should be pretty good. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of it, it should be pretty good.
Yeah, I knew it was long. I knew it was probably really good, and I obviously I knew it was about a LGBTQ couple, and I knew who Leia Sado who was. She'd been in. She was in a Bond movie. I know her from. She was in that Death Stranding. She was in. She was in a Tarantino film.
Oh, okay.
She was one of the daughters of the cow farmer in Glorious Bastards. I
Okay.
forget.
So she's a frequent collaborator.
I don't know. But she's a good actress.
Yeah, but talking about character, what do you think about the symbolism in the color blue is? Because obviously it's in the title of the film. It's in it highlights the nightclub that they go to. It's seen all throughout the film, the color blue. So what do you think it means all throughout the film? Does it symbolize something in particular? Is it a tone? Uh,
I think it's just a symbol of and this might be just looking at it on the surface level. I didn't really look up any like theme stuff, so I might get it totally wrong.
What do you think? The art should be able to stand on its own.
To me, it just meant that they have a non-traditional relationship. Most people, if they are equating a heterosexual relationship to red and describing that, red is what we mostly associate as a warm color. They are the flip side of that. They are, in their minds, blue is the warmest color, blue being a homosexual relationship. That is all I took from that, was that they are in, obviously, Emma represents that different lifestyle, and that is where that color comes into play. It's in her hair, it's in her eyes, it's, I think one of them wears a dress that's blue at one point. Yeah, so it's just, that's what I saw it as. I saw it as a color of distinction, and a color that just represents the kind of the otherness they feel with this relationship when it comes to society. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
I got it.
And you made an interpretation that makes perfect sense to me. It was,
my monkey brain was like, wait a second, love is normally red, and this time it's blue. So that's my intense analysis of that.
I love it. That's what I'm going with too. Yeah, I didn't really think about. I was obviously, when I see stuff like that in movies, a lot of time I try and equate it to something, but I really don't focus on it. I just wait for the movie to tell me eventually, and if it doesn't, then I think back on it. I guess that's like, now that Jackson said it, it's all I'm gonna be able to think about. So
that's true. I kind of gave a very cookie cutter explanation. It's like, yeah, that's right.
It was a good interpretation. I would. What do you think, Sam? That's what
I just thought blue's just. I didn't really say red in my mind. I just thought blue's not usually a color you relate to a relationship like that. So, but possibly to something that like their relationship, a homosexual relationship, you possibly could. So that was in my mind. I didn't really contrast it with red, but it makes sense. Just like you said.
the way Jackson read it, I think makes sense. I think when I was watching it, I simply took it as blue was just like the signifier for Emma's character in Adele's mind, and it was kind of like a theme that popped up throughout. Like, obviously it was her hair, but then like once she changed her hair, that thing started to change between them, and it never went back. And she always, like, at the end where she goes to the thing with like the blue dress, I think she was wearing a blue shirt in the cafe scene. That it's like she's trying to like hold on to like their relationship that they had, but like it's kind of That's my.
Yeah, and I have another question for you guys. How do you interpret the message about the film, and how does it relate to our world, like outside of the film? Because all throughout the film, it follows their relationship from start to finish, and like the life of an artist, and how someone else can try to relate to that who isn't in that profession, but they can never really fully grasp their full their full love of that passion, while they also have a relationship with someone else. So how does that relationship translate to our world that we live in right now?
I think what I kind of got from that sort of thing you're kind of talking about was there's this whole thing about discovery in the movie about Adele like discovering her sexuality, and kind of like the first like hour and a half is kind of like a coming of age story. And like I was telling my roommate about it, and he goes like, that sounds like a really long coming of age movie, 3 hours. And I was like, yeah. And what I made me realize was like, yeah, the first hour and a half is like a coming of age, but like the second half I felt like was kind of like a lot of those kinds of movies, they end with I got the girl type thing, I know myself now. And I think the last hour and a half kind of set apart a little bit, and is like, life's more complicated than just like, I know myself. I can, you never really like 100% figure yourself out. And I think that was part of Adele's thing, was she thought that women was all she wanted. And then when things started getting rough in their relationship, and she thought this person was like it for her. And then as the relationship went on and things started to get bumpy, she kind of had like a second sexual awakening. And then that ended up not really, I don't know. I don't think, because I think the sex scenes really kind of, obviously like the first one with the guy was kind of showing that like this, she wasn't into it. And then like the second one, the big one, was like, this is what's for her, sort of
insane sexual explosion of, right. Yeah.
Like, this is exactly what she wants. They don't show her having sex with the other guy, which makes me think maybe, I don't know, something about, I'm not really sure. Because I wouldn't say it's like a second awakening, or if it was just like this guy was giving her attention and she needed that sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like obviously there was a lot of tension between like her like art world thing and her not being into it. And as much as like, I don't know, Emma was kind of a dick for him there. Like she was like I get it. Like she was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna throw a party with all my swanky friends, and then like flirt with this girl right in front of you, and kind of be like, you should be an artist too. And she's like, no, I find fulfillment in working with kids. And then she's just like, no, you don't. And then like she was probably cheating on her beforehand. We don't know that. Not to take completely Adele's side in it. I don't know. It was I don't know. I don't have any like deep reads about the artist lifestyle from it, but I read that Emma was kind of a dick, and they kind of like reconciled it towards the end, but it was still like, I don't know. I feel I'm on Adele's side, I guess, in that.
Yeah, I mean, this whole film has like this huge philosophical subtext. Like they're constantly, especially in the first half, they go back to school and then they read a passage from some work of great literature that like I've never even heard of, and like, yeah, I mean, they all probably mean something. And if I went back and really dissected each piece, I'm sure it would be important. But like on the surface level, just like watching it this week, I think that, the ending reminds me a lot of La La Land, because it's unsatisfying in a way, but it also, that's kind of how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to make you feel like, love isn't perfect. Sometimes you have to make choices. Sometimes the person you thought you were compatible with isn't anymore, kind of like an anti-love story in some ways. But you're right. It takes dramatic shifts partway through in the tone of the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, at the end of it, I just can't help but feel like Emma is a big reason why that relationship didn't work. It seems like Adele had her own issues, but with trying to discover who she was. But once she found Emma, it felt like she was committed, and it was only after Emma started being very clearly infatuated with other things that Adele starts making some less than, in my opinion, some not great decisions.
Yeah. I was gonna say this was something that I was thinking about when I was watching it, was that even though I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's a theme, but it was something like an intricacy to it, was that Adele, despite like having the sexual awakening, discovering what she who she really was type thing, she, despite like becoming or at least identifying as like bisexual lesbian, she didn't really it seemed like she definitely like wanted like a very traditional gender role within the relationship that Emma didn't really want, in a way, or didn't see. I don't really know, because there was definitely like the whole like, you should be an artist type thing. She's like, no, that's all you, and like helping kids. I find complete fulfillment in that. She does the dishes and she cooks, and it was like she was kind of like, she wasn't comfortable in it, but she gravitated towards it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which I felt was, I don't know, part of it in a way that the relationship worked because of that. But I don't know. I forgot what
It's a complicated movie, man. I don't know. It's really like, it's on its surface. But there's so many like little emotional things to tap into, and the philosophy arc and everything, that you can tell that it's enjoyable on a surface level, but there's probably a lot to unpack in terms of like what art is and what it means to be, bisexual or a lesbian or attracted to somebody. All that. I'm sure there's a lot
more
to
like part like feeling that way, but not buying into the lifestyle, I guess, of it, or the alternative. Like, she was clearly incredibly uncomfortable in like the bars that she went to, even at like the Pride Parade. Like, she didn't seem at home, I guess, 100%. Like, she seemed to enjoy herself, but I mean, that's not really like, there's a difference between like, having a sexual attraction to the same gender and having this really bombastic, extroverted, personality, and kind of.
Yeah, it seems like she had a sexual preference that was geared towards Emma, but not necessarily to like women in general. Like, it seemed like she was very focused on like, this is my person. I want this thing, and that's it. She didn't really buy into any other aspects of what we consider to be, traditional bisexual or lesbian stereotypes or tendencies.
Yeah, cliches.
Emma fell into, yeah.
Sam, we've been talking a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, you guys just picked out. Someone said La La Land. I was thinking. I also thought of like Marriage Story. How you have this unsatisfying ending towards the end of it. How obviously they didn't end up together in the end. They went their separate ways, and most likely depending on what character you are, the better for each.
I think
as you see the film, you kind of choose what you think about that. But hopefully, it was for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think it's for the better for the end for the characters that they ended up apart from each other?
I think they were incompatible from the beginning in some ways, and those just became greater as the film went on and more prominent.
They had that like an undeniable like synergy type, and kind of obviously an attraction, but like, they're like like soulmates type thing, but like everything around that just kind of butted. And once they got out of the like honeymoon phase of it, I think I think in the end it'll be better for at least definitely for Adele. I think I don't know. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think it's ever like. I mean, there's exceptions, but like your first, love, air quotes, usually isn't your last.
Right.
Because I think there's a certain level of just like blind, like adoration and like obsession that goes into it. That's not healthy, or at least won't like produce something that's actually, two people equals that are, respect each other, in that way. And I think definitely throughout the film that point's kind of driven home is that Adele's kind of not like obsessed, but like completely focused on Emma, and Emma kind of like fights back against her.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Jackson, about Blue's the Warmest Color?
No, I mean, I don't know this weirdo French director why he decided to have these like 10-minute long sex scenes, especially that one in the middle we talked about that is just like, it doesn't even veer on the side of pornographic. It is straight like there is nothing not shown. I looked it up afterwards, and apparently they use like some prosthetics or something, which I don't really know how that makes it any less graphic. But I mean, if that's what they wanted, it made it better for the actors, I suppose, or the actresses.
I think it's definitely I'm not going to say it's 100% a cultural difference, but I will say it affects our viewing of it. Is that we were definitely socialized in a world, in a culture, society that I don't want to say represses, but represses.
It's more taboo.
It's definitely like arm's length with that sort of thing. They're less comfortable with their sexuality. I mean, even in like a context thing. I mean, literally just like the idea of like age of consent in France is 15. In the story, that first 10-minute scene is a 15-year-old with a 23-year-old. And like in America, and obviously to us, just because we were socialized that way, that's like,
already that's like, ooh, geez.
Ooh, geez. And it's like, I'm not saying like, oh, we shouldn't feel like that. We were socialized that way. There's no way we're not going to feel like that. But especially in places in Europe, but like I think specifically like France, I'm not a French study, whatever, but they're not quite as like repressed Protestant mindset or like socialization as we are in America. And I think even Léa Seydoux in an interview said, yeah, it was long, but also like, it's something people do. And she went on this whole tirade, and at the end was like, Americans are uncomfortable with it. I don't see a problem.
And listen, it's not the act of putting, I still stand by, it's not the act of putting an overt sex scene in your film.
Yeah.
It's the pacing, man. It's like at a certain point, I've gotten everything story-wise that I'm going to get out of this moment. And at this point, it's like you just forgot to cut. So, it's like I acknowledge my, prudish American tendencies, but that was an incredibly long sex scene.
It's famous for it. I mean, because like of the 3-hour runtime, there's at least, I think they said, I read 15 to 20 minutes. I think it was 15 minutes of the runtime is just like sex scenes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being a 10-minute long.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
But
that's all we have to say this week for our film discussion for Blue's the Warmest Color. We will announce our film club film for next week at the end of the show. That's Jackson Guido's pick.
Yep.
Try to top Doerge's infamous Blue's the Warmest Color.
I like it.
I liked it too, but it's maybe something a little less controversial, maybe.
We need a palate cleanser for that one.
Our chat looks a little thin today, and it might be because some people just didn't watch it because I don't know. But people, we're Americans. We're not French.
We can try.
It's an interesting film. We're trying to open your eyes, everyone, to a new film like this.
We're going to talk about Film Week. We can't ignore the exotic.
Oh no,
French tastes. Okay, with sometimes. Thank you, Doerge, for bringing in some fresh spice into the pot. All right, we talk about blockbuster releases all the time.
About the 10-minute long sex scene, I would have had it been my choice. I just would have said, hey, for us people, there is this really long scene. But also, I didn't want to spoil it for myself, so I'm not going to do it. I regret nothing. I
regret nothing for Doerge either. I think it was a good decision. That being said, mine is not a exotic French film, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, moving on. And our film news for this week starts with Dune. And this is a film we've been talking about since last year. And when we got our first announcement just about some people reacting to the first pieces of footage for the film. As everyone knows, this is an adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction epic by the same name. And it follows the young royal Paul Atreides, I can't say the name, Atreides, prepare to leave his comfortable life, and he goes to a dangerous mining planet known as Arceus, where his wealthy family will oversee extraction of a spice vital to the galaxy. And that's the general plot of the film that we will see this December. And luckily, this film was always set to release December 17th, 18th. So it didn't move yet, and it's keeping its release date, unlike a lot of summer films, which are moving and stealing its landscape in that time. And we have our first look, though, at Timothee Chalamet as the main character, as Paul Atreides. And I don't know if I can send the link in the chat, but I'll try. I'm sending the link of all the.
There's Timothee Chalamet, and then there was Oscar Isaac got posted on Twitter. Oscar Isaac, and then in the background, I think. Was it Michael Shannon? I couldn't tell. I don't remember.
There was someone in the back of that photo.
Yeah, the Oscar.
The second.
It was either.
Oh yeah.
It does look like Michael Shannon, doesn't it?
It was a Michael Shannon type.
Yeah, that's interesting. But hey, look, these photos. Oscar Isaac sporting the large beard.
Oh, there's even more photos. Oh no, it was the guy the main character.
Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa,
Oscar Isaac. There's
and then Rebecca Ferguson looks like a Sith Lord.
There's a photo of
Zendaya.
Zendaya with like a nose tube ring.
People who read the book probably
it looks like they have breathalyzers or something.
I was supposed to read the book for a class, and then I decided that reading an entire book while trying to take 13 credit hours was too much, so I skimmed it. Sorry, let me say that. I used the internet to summarize it, so I know kind of what it's something to do with the atmosphere, the environment on the planet. It's not great. They have to have like either like oxygen or air or oxygen or water like directly like implanted into their body or something. It's a weird movie, or it's a weird book. It's like just imagine like Game of Thrones.
Which means,
like it's just like Star Wars.
Weird book.
Go ahead.
Yeah, weird book should mean weird movie at least, and from what we're seeing, it does look.
I mean, it's
different.
Villeneuve. I mean, it's gonna be weird.
The technology look like.
Is Sam cutting out, or am I cutting out?
No, Sam is cutting out.
Okay, I'll take over.
Sam, I think you froze up. It's funny because on my screen, he's like completely frozen.
It looks unique to the world that they're in. Like
I don't know what you're talking about.
The breathe out for like the last minute.
Yeah, he's back to December now.
Oh, there he goes. There he's back.
Oh shit. So it's just lagging. Okay, I can only have a few tabs open.
I guess so. Yeah. That was so funny.
Yeah, but with all the films in the summer moving back to December now, and they're all shuffling around at this point. In December, at this point, we have Free Guy, Dune, West Side Story, Coming to America 2, Top Gun Maverick, The Croods 2, and Tom and Jerry that everyone's looking forward to. But with this whole slate now in December, how do you think Dune's going to do? Because with Denis Villeneuve, his last film was, as we all know, Blade Runner 2049, a critically a film that uh, it was overwhelmingly loved by everyone, but financially it failed big time, and it even closed the production company. So, how do you think this film's going to do? Because before in last year, I was already scared about this film, and with not too much competition. But now that it has competition, what do you guys think? How do you think this film will do financially after we saw some art from this, some production photos?
I think it is still a tentpole runner for December, but I mean, no film is helped by more competition. So I think it will hurt all of the films. Dune might be the one that gets away with still making what it hopes to do, but for some of the others, I think Dune will take away their business.
Yeah, I think from a creative standpoint, Dune is it's a weird book. It's very adult. It's I don't know, and then you have Denis Villeneuve directing. I have a feeling. I wonder how much the studio is going to be involved in making it like, a tentpole sort of thing. How like audience friendly it's going to be. I think it's going to probably be really cool. I'm definitely going to go see it. As for financially, I think it's going to be, if it does well, it's going to be surprising. I feel like I'm hesitant to say it's going to be successful just because it doesn't have that family friendly appeal at all,
like Star Wars or something like that.
Unless they've like drastically changed the source material, because so you talked about spice. Spice is a narcotic. This planet is like mined for this narcotic that like basically makes you like telepathic and telekinetic and all this crazy stuff. If you're of this like special priest, or it's got this really, really deep, intricate lore too. That's like, I don't know. It'll either become like the next Lord of the Rings, or it's gonna not get a sequel like the original did in the '80s when David Lynch tried to make it.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too, for sure.
And I think they realized that, and that's why they stacked the cast. Like, they got like every lovable actor they could find, and they just threw him in there because they're like, you don't like Zendaya, you might like Timothee Chalamet. You like Timothee Chalamet, you might like Oscar Isaac.
Yeah,
Jason Momoa, get that game.
Jason Momoa, I forgot he was in this film. I forgot he was in it. Everyone's in it. It's insane.
That's the demographic.
Javier Bardem's in it too, I think.
Is the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Now the Game of Thrones is gone. They need an adult fantasy series. I mean, if they can do it, look, I think it's probably going to be great. I'm probably going to love it. But, obviously, I picked Blue is the Warmest Color, and that movie's not for everybody. I'm reaffirming myself as the snobby film guy, but, saying all this. But
no, I mean, I hope it turns out to be a financial success. You hate to see, Denis Villeneuve is not immune to great movies that don't perform well at the box office. We've seen that a few times.
I feel like that's like most of his movies, except for Arrival.
Yeah, pretty much. Arrival was the one that kind of broke the mold, but apart from that,
and Sicario.
Blade Runner 2049 is a big example of that. Man, just fantastic films that just don't quite get they're weird and they aren't exactly what people are used to, and sometimes that's tough to market. But
and the reason why I really bring that up is because they already have a television show for HBO Max in the works. They're really splitting the first book into 2 films, so this is really only part 1. And then even after this, there's still like 10 other books in the whole series. So if this one does do surprisingly well, we could see 30 more years of Dune material. But it all depends on this first one. So we'll see how. Yeah, it gets even weirder. So this is only step 1 in the weird experiment. So we have to journey even further if this one succeeds. So I'm interested. I will definitely be in the theater the weekend that it comes out. But
Oh, for sure.
Hopefully other people will be too. But moving on to an adaptation coming from book to film and a remake of one, Salem's Lot. The writer Gary Dauberman, he's writing the film. He's now set to direct the film as well. And we know Gary Dauberman. He's written almost every The Conjuring universe film since the first Annabelle, I'm pretty sure. But recently, he had his directorial debut with Annabelle Comes Home, and he wrote the film as well. I saw this film in theaters. I love the second Annabelle film. This third one, not the biggest fan of. Not really a fan of at all. This is a New Line's adaptation of Salem's Lot. It's a vampire led film starring a whole cult of vampires, really. Dauberman, he has a huge stake in the film already since he's writing, so he's already been attached for a while. James Wan, Roy Lee, two producers. James Wan, as a director as well. Roy Lee, he even produced the It movies. They are producing the film. The book was published in 1975. It's in my mind, it's one of Stephen King's maybe top 5 most well-known books. He has a bunch, but Salem's Lot, it comes to my mind at least. It's up there.
I think it was his first or second big hit besides Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie. That was his.
As far as I know,
that was his rocket. That was his. But this one's interesting to me because, like Gary Dauberman, he has Annabelle Comes Home. That was his first one. Salem's Lot. It was a film back in the 80s, I think, or even before that. Yeah,
series in the late
a while
70s.
ago. But that series or in film, it's not it's not loved by the public as much as a lot of Stephen King properties. But remaking Stephen King properties nowadays, you can't really go wrong. Like, not one has failed in a long time. To me, this is just a risky pick in my mind.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, y'all remember The Dark Tower?
The Dark. Oh yeah, I forget about that. Yeah, I never saw it.
No one forgets about The Dark Tower.
I just, the production issues alone made me stay away. But
me too.
I just but other than The Dark Tower, in my mind, I really like the Pet Sematary that came out last year. I think early last year. I liked it. It got mixed reviews. I was a big fan of it. Of course, It won. I'm a big fan of It 2. Is a fine film as well. Not as good as the first, but a nice one. And there's a bunch I'm missing. But like Gerald's Game, there's a bunch of Netflix ones as well. Netflix hasn't really messed up Stephen King lately. But what do you guys think of giving this property, which is a well-known Stephen King book, giving it to a second? This will be a second directing film. What do you guys think about handing this property to this filmmaker? Jackson, what do you think?
It definitely, I mean, despite Stephen King's many successes in the movie world, sometimes he's not always happy with the adaptations, and sometimes they don't quite land with the public, even though they are of some quality. But, Stephen King is a great writer, but it seems like some of his stuff can be difficult to adapt without some heavy editing. I just hope that Gary Dauberman is willing to adapt some things that may not work as well, because if this, I can understand that if they did a shot or a word for word remake of Salem's Lot for the miniseries, if it didn't quite land, maybe they should look at that and say, well, there maybe are some aspects of this plot we should shorten up or thin out. It is a great example. If you did an exact page for page cover of it with all the weirdness that's in it and the stuff, I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, but there's some stuff in there that would not translate well to today's audience. I don't think so.
Watch the It Honest trailer on YouTube.
But avoiding pitfalls like that, where Stephen King just gets a little too Stephen King-y, it'll work because at the surface, at the base level, he's a fantastic writer and he makes great stuff, and that's why his film adaptations do so well. So, I think this will at least be a mild success. It's a horror movie with the name behind it. I think we'll see similar, not knowing anything about how much money they're throwing behind this thing, I think it'll do similar press and numbers to Pet Sematary.
What do you think, Doerge? Are you a big Stephen King fan? What do you think about the recent films this pick of director?
I like the Stephen King tone a decent amount. Like The Shining, the book / the movie are like two of my favorite things. Like the book is incredible and the movie is obviously a Kubrick classic, but I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it being more than like a genre film. Salem's Lot, at least right now, just because they're bringing on Gary Doberman. He's a genre screenwriter who only focuses Annabelle, those kinds of like very Hollywood.
Yeah, The Nun.
Yeah, very Hollywood kind of horror, like very true blood horror films. I think maybe I don't know. I think I don't think it'll be bad by any means. I think it's going to be something that genre fans like. But beyond that, I don't really know a lot about Salem's Lot besides about vampires.
That's all I got too.
Yeah, I don't see I don't see Doberman even like attempting to elevate the material. Really, he's gonna make a Hollywood style horror film, and it'll probably be
decent. Mm-hmm. And they always mention
Sam, you're probably the real critic on this one because you're a big fan of his, or at least the franchise.
Yeah, I've seen mostly every single thing that he's done, not by intention, but just by what I watch.
And how do you feel about his directing when he stepped into the chair for that?
From Annabelle Comes Home, I saw that it was a summer film last year. I just wasn't a fan of Annabelle Comes Home, and the thing is, he wrote that film as well. So this is all his project, and that was his first time stepping in the directing role. So
was it?
If I didn't like the
did you not like it for something to do with the story, or was there some aspect of it that you did?
It was mostly plot wise, but directing, just I didn't think that the actors were mostly just young actors, and like teenage-ish. So that mostly relies on the director as well to get them there. But seeing Salem's Lot is mostly focused on an adult cast, so I could see them throwing in a big name there. So on that side, I could see that elevated by just like the talent involved. But the script, I'm worried about because this is just all him. He's writing and directing, so I don't see him. Just like you said, I don't see too many risks being taken by Gary Doberman. But my also worry is
screenwriter with decent source. As long as he doesn't make too big jumps away from the source material, he could probably. I defer to your judgment.
Yeah, but also I'm also worried about Warner Brothers' loyalty to their creatives because it's in my mind I see them being too loyal because it seems like if a film succeeds in Warner's mind, and especially on their New Line Cinema side, they're in the cycle and they just have their little short list of directors that they're going to throw on a project. And in my mind, I don't see Gary Doberman as the first choice for this project, but he's just a good plan B, and they just threw him on this. I kind of wish they would have got someone unknown to work on this film instead of him, but because it's either like I like David F. Sandberg, but it seems like he's probably on their short list at this point from Lights Out and Shazam. Gary Doberman. James Wan's never going to do a film like this again unless he has a major producing role and it's coming from Atomic Monster. But this kind of, I wish they would get new voices in and just stay away from, because Annabelle Comes Home didn't really get too much love critically, but financially it's always going to make its money back because he threw it's pocket change they make it for. So it just worries me that they're sticking with him. And he's a nice guy. I've listened to interviews with him before, but I'd like a new voice. But moving on to our next topic, and this is Atomic Blonde 2. It's reportedly in early development at Netflix. So the first film that came out in I'd say 3 years ago in 2017. It was a commercial success and critical success, and not the biggest success, but it grossed $100 million in the US on a budget of 30 mil, which is fine. It definitely made its money back with some extra. The first film was adapted from a 2012 graphic novel titled The Coldest City, and it starred Charlize Theron as the main character, an MI6 agent who undertakes a treacherous mission. And it was also directed by David Leitch, who's known for John Wick. He did, and after Atomic Blonde, he did Deadpool 2 and Fast and the Furious spinoff Hobbs and Shaw. And he's even busier after this, and he's always been talking about Atomic Blonde 2, but we haven't got an official word for a while. But now Netflix has picked up the rights to Atomic Blonde 2, and Leitch is also working on projects for Netflix, like in 2 film, and also other people that he's working with are working on projects. So what do you guys think about theatrical rejects? Like, in my mind, Atomic Blonde 2, there just wasn't enough excitement for this film to get a theatrical release. So what do you think about a film like this just going to Netflix? Or does this excite you, or is it a quality issue with the script that they have? Because someone has someone has worked on the script, but there just hasn't been too much excitement to have this film go to theaters, it seems like. And Netflix just picked up the rights. So do you see this as a win for theaters because they saw this as a loss and they're just shipping it off to Netflix? Or is this a win for Netflix picking up this film that could get them new viewers? What do you think?
I don't think the theaters are winning in any context in the current.
Well, right now. Yeah.
I don't think they're racking up any wins even, before coronavirus hit, and now, especially now. We're calling into question the entire theatrical system as the mainstay of how we consume new media. And considering that, I think Atomic Blonde is, right in that sweet spot of a risky investment for the theater system. So I think it's a good move because otherwise it might not have gotten greenlit at all. With the theater model being as risky as it is, not everything's going to make it through because they're not going to be as willing to bet on things that aren't guaranteed surefire successes. So I think Netflix and streaming services will continue to be for a while it will be seen as a downgrade from a theatrical release, but I think soon we'll see it as a very natural progression for certain genre films and most things that aren't event movies. It's the same as something not being put. We'll see it as the same as something not being put in IMAX. Not every movie gets put into IMAX, but only the large movies that make the most sense financially will. And of course, the content of the film making sense for the big screen. That will become, in my opinion, how theaters work. And
I think the movie was financially successful enough when it first came out, and these kind of movies. I mean, I don't know, I guess, but I feel like they do pretty well on like a Netflix type thing. They're similar to indie movies where there is they're kind of a popcorn fun type movie. And I feel like those sort of movies do really, really well on streaming services. Obviously they do well in theaters too, because dollars. But I don't see it as particularly a negative choice. I mean, David Leitch so far hasn't really done much wrong. I mean, unless you count Hobbs and Shaw. Just I don't want to be the film top again.
No, I mean, but the tricky part will be seeing how Atomic Blonde, because as more and more films go that way, we'll have to think about what are the metrics of success for a Netflix film, because beforehand we had no idea, and then we got some numbers released, and now we have this top 10 thing. Have you guys seen that on Netflix?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing. Community got onto Netflix. The TV show from Dan Harmon.
Yeah, that was huge.
That passed The Office this week, which I find very gratifying. But sorry.
Well, and since that top 10 has come out, Tiger King hasn't really left number one for what, 3-4 weeks at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So before that, it was just comedy specials. It seemed like to me. I haven't really seen a film as number one yet.
So
the platform is in the top 5 for a while, but
now we have a metric for whether a movie does well on Netflix. Like, would you say that like if you're a big studio producer and now you're thinking, if my big tentpole action movie that I've decided to put on Netflix doesn't make it into the top 10, is that a failure? Is that something the news is going to report on?
I want to say so. It's as much as Netflix buys it for. That's what you should care about. Netflix should care about the numbers. If I was selling it, that's what my mindset would be. But as a creative, if I was working on a project, to see it in the top 10, that would mean a lot to me. Just seeing that people are watching it, and especially in these times, everyone's at home. Getting in the top 10 means that much more. And because each number is probably multiplied by a lot, because people are just watching so much right now. So those numbers are inflated by a lot currently. But I personally never even saw the first Atomic Blonde. But I was interested. To me, it just looked like, oh, it's female John Wick. I love John Wick, so I'll give it a chance. But I'm a big fan of Charlize Theron, and I want to give it a shot. And now, I'm sure since they've acquired the rights to Atomic Blonde 2, that the first Atomic Blonde will probably be on Netflix anytime, because that just cross-promoting each film will make the second one even that much more popular. But do you think this is the best use of Netflix's money, to buy the rights to Atomic Blonde 2, to retain their audience so that other platforms won't continue to eat up their market space? Not just Atomic Blonde 2 in general, but the sequels of already popular films. Do you think that's a good model for them to go after rather than original projects? What do you think, Doerge?
Yeah. I mean, if you got a known IP that's made money in the past, I mean, it's really a no-brainer. I mean, because that's really the name of the game right now. Hollywood is, do people like it? Has it made money? And if those two things are correct, but then no studio wants to touch it for a sequel, and Netflix is like, sure, I'll buy it. I mean, like that, in itself is, I mean, that's just good business. And then they can use that to make more original content if it brings in more viewers or whatever. Because I think Netflix right now, I don't think, again, it's really hard to judge any of this Netflix metric stuff, but the really successful Netflix originals end up being like these like sort of like pseudo documentary reality sort of things. I mean, like Tiger King, obviously can't give complete credit to Netflix for that, just because that was just like the documentary film crew just stumbled upon like one of the craziest things to ever like come out of like the Midwest. But I really don't think they can. I don't know. I don't see this as going. This could go really. I mean, it could go wrong in the fact that it doesn't get a lot of viewers. But once again, with Netflix, how do you judge success? It has a lot of. It made money before it got critical acclaim. They have the same director and star back. It seems like a perfect storm.
What do you think, Jackson? Do you think this is the right move for them to go after sequels to already popular films, or continue on the rise of their original projects like Tiger King?
As much as
you agree with
how important originals are, I can count on one hand how many original films come from Netflix that are, that I see as being true classics. We see Roma got released on Netflix. Their Marriage Story, handful of others that are really like incredible films in their own right, and that don't need to, but apart from that, Netflix is releases a lot of films every year that don't really catch fire with their audiences and are just kind of there to fill the catalog. So I think there is still a place for known IPs that have seen theatrical success in Netflix's catalog. It might change in the future, but for now, picking up stuff like Atomic Blonde 2 could be the difference between someone signing up for a subscription and not, because they see that this is a streaming service that has IPs that I know.
And I think alternatively with that is right now what I really think people are fighting for is what these streaming services are fighting for is not this film is going to make someone sign up. It's this film will make someone not drop us, especially with all these new streaming services. That's really what they're fighting for. Because imagine this, that say there's a bidding war for the sequel, Netflix doesn't pick it up, Peacock does, or HBO Max or whatever. Suddenly, people that are really big fans of one, they want to go see it. Oh well, I guess I'll go watch. I'll get an HBO Max at least for a month. And they're like, I really like HBO Max now. Is it worth it to keep Netflix? Netflix is kind of expensive, and then they drop Netflix. That's really what they're fighting for, because I feel like at this point, most people that have a Netflix, people that wanted a Netflix probably got it. I mean,
Yeah. But. And at this point, to me, it just seems like they're trying to be that substitute for the theatrical experience, because they have the films that are supposed to, this is a film that's supposed to be in a theater. This feels like like it's an action film from a theater, but it's just on Netflix. You're not going to see it in a theater. So, and it just seems like a substitute for the theater experience that I'd definitely watch it if it was on Netflix. I'm a fan of David Leitch. I like he does great action, and that's what he's known for. He's a stuntman himself. And the first film, I still have to check that out too. So if it's on Netflix, I'll give it a shot and watch the second one. So moving on to our next subject, talking about a something coming to a streaming service that is unexpected. Robin Hood is getting a live action CGI remake, and this isn't the Robin Hood you think I'm talking about. This is the Robin Hood of the Fox-ish animals from Disney, and this is going to be coming to Disney Plus. The original animated 2D version was released in 1993. It was a reimagination of the legend as a musical adventure set in a world populated by anthropomorphic animals, starring Robin as a fox, Little John as a bear, and a bunch of well-known songs. With last year's The Lion King and Aladdin, both live-action remakes of well-known Disney animated films, they both grossed $1 billion. Both grossed over $1 billion at the box office. It doesn't really seem like their remakes have really failed yet, aside from Dumbo, and they even had a Mulan that was supposed to release in July, but of course that moved back a few months. But Robin Hood, in particular, isn't as well known and isn't as beloved as any of the films I previously mentioned. Like even Dumbo. I'm sure that might be a toss-up between kids nowadays seeing Dumbo or Robin Hood. But if I told someone Robin Hood on the streets, I don't think they would think of a fox to begin with. Dumbo, in everyone's mind, is an elephant. At least it has that brand recognition. And for Disney, I think they've been ignorant of Robin Hood for a while. But right now, they're looking for stuff to make, and they're looking to adaptate this film as a live-action CG film, and it's looking to keep its comic and just animated tone, because it's Fox is dressed up as Robin Hood, and animals taking the roles of these iconic characters. So it's still going to be a live-action musical in that tone, but. Do you believe that Robin Hood's lack of pop culture presence is a reason for its release on Disney Plus, aside from skipping the theatrical experience? Because there's a bunch of The Jungle Book is another remake that had a bunch of songs in it and still went to theaters. I don't think it was as well known, and probably Dumbo isn't as well known in today's market. But Robin Hood, it's going straight to Disney Plus. why do you think that is? Why do you think it's skipping directly the theatrical experience, Jackson?
I think it just makes
What's
sense.
the reason for that?
It's not a shoe in like the Lion King or those other IPs. It's an older property. It's been adapted a couple times with varying levels of success in live action versions, and they're not sure whether or not kids will like it. So it kind of makes perfect sense. You can see that they are maybe learning from their mistakes with Dumbo and realizing not every Disney classic film, regardless of how popular it was when it was initially released, it may not do that kind of numbers here. So it's a safe bet, and I think ultimately it'll be the right decision, because I really can't see a lot of people. I'm nostalgic for this film, but that's because I own this film, so I don't really know.
I've never personally seen it, and I've never personally seen it though.
Yeah, it was one of those classic movies sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's one, I think personally, most of these remakes have a home on Disney Plus. I feel like more so than anywhere else, because obviously it's kind of like its own genre now, like Disney remake movies, and some of them do really well theatrically, but as they're starting to get to their more obscure air quotes titles that they're going to reboot, like they did a Lady and the Tramp reboot that was like on Disney Plus when it started. It's like
it premiered with it.
Further away from like the mega classics, they're going to start saying, like they already are, most people don't care. Most people aren't going to go to the theaters to see every remake. Like Aladdin was probably the last big one before Mulan hits it, and once Mulan hits, after that, what else are they going to do that's going to be theater worthy?
Yeah, I can see that.
They have a bunch down the line though. They're still doing that Cruella film.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they still have like 5 in development. They have so many remakes, and even after Aladdin, they did Maleficent 2, which it probably made its money back. I don't think it lost money, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how successful it was, but I don't think it was a bomb. I would say at least. But this is surprising to me. I honestly forgot about this film. Disney has so many animated films in their catalog that they can remake anytime they want. But yeah, and this is going to come to Disney Plus sometime in the future, and they have Carrie Granlund she's working on the script, and Carlos Lopez Estrada he's gonna direct the film. And I'm not familiar with either of these creatives, but we'll see how they do when the film releases. And I'd say, like, due to the nature of the film, probably at least 2 years, and probably I'd say fall of 2022 if we see this film. But it's a interesting spot to pick in film to pick to remake for Disney Plus. And before this, they're probably going to revamp and really promote the original film for the younger audience. But moving on to a film a lot like this other director, that's Martin Scorsese. His next film may go to Apple or Netflix, but who knows? It may go to Quibi, because he's looking for someone to pick up his film, because he's become so accustomed to, after working on The Irishman for so long, the nature of a huge budget, it seems like, because the budget right now is $200 million for the film that he's currently working on, titled Killers of the Flower Moon. In this film, it stars Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's been in production for a few years now. DiCaprio signed on back in 2018, and De Niro joined the cast later in 2018. But he's been working on The Irishman for, I'd say, 4 years at this point, just getting all the pieces in place before he can really work with Netflix. And he was in production of the film for, it seemed like 6 months at least. It seemed like forever. And just the process of creating The Irishman took so long, and it was a great film in its own right, and the runtime is like 3.5 hours at least. So that's The Irishman. It took forever to film, took forever to watch, but we're gonna get that Killers of the Flower Moon next, and this is an adaptation of a book, just like The Irishman. And as always, I'm not too familiar with the subject, but I'm sure it's a mob related film. It was initially set up at Paramount to release and produce, but it was passed. They passed the film. They passed on the film due to budgetary concerns. The Irishman boasted a rather hefty price tag. It wasn't the $200 million price tag towards the end of production due to the de-aging effects on all three of the major cast members: Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and who's I'm forgetting the main Michael Corleone. What's his name?
Goodness me.
Scarface. Yeah.
Oh, Al Pacino.
Someone right in the chat. Yeah, Al Pacino. Yeah, I'm blanking on Al Pacino. God dang. But according to the Wall Street Journal, Paramount is having second thoughts, and after passing on the film, they picked the film back up, and they're backing Killers of the Flower Moon. Oh no, my bad. They're having second thoughts about the film. I'm talking about how they dropped it, and this resulted in Netflix bidding on the film to pick it up, and Scorsese's also talking to other Universal and MGM to distribute the film, but nothing is finalized at this point. After hearing the news, do you think Scorsese will ever release another film in theaters due to his huge budgets that he's used to, and after The Irishman, he's really working with it at this point? So, Jackson, what do you think? Do you think we'll see another Irishman film released in theaters? Another Scorsese film, I mean.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if this model continues to work for him, I don't see why he would go back. And if he thinks it's good for his film and what he's trying to convey, I could see it working no problem. I mean, and I'm excited for the precedent, seeing the success of The Irishman and that he's continuing this. I hope that this sets a greater precedent for aging auteurs to trust their work to be distributed on streaming services. We've already gotten a few big ones, but I mean, how cool would it be if, who's next? Is it going to be Tarantino's 10th film being put out on Netflix, or a Wes Anderson film, or whatever it might be? That would certainly be something to see. And I hope this opens the floodgates for more films like this.
Yeah.
What do you think, Doerge?
Sorry.
No. What do you think?
Oh, I was just saying, I don't see Tarantino ever releasing something on that. He's going to be very angry about that if everyone ever suggested to him. So this movie, I looked it up. It's based on a book about, as it was described, the founding of the FBI, basically, after these like murders by an oil company in the 20s of these wealthy people that like lived on this like oil deposit. So it's some grand sweeping, There Will Be Blood type story, except apparently with like quadruple the budget. I don't. Obviously, it's probably gonna get financed eventually, but the question is, these people are never gonna get their money back. I don't care how. I mean, releasing it on a streaming service, is keeping your subscribers, however many they think it'll keep them. Is it worth $200 million and very bad?
Right.
Sure. Scorsese movies really bring in the money, really bring in the people. Everybody was on Netflix trying to watch, either Marriage Story or The Irishman right before Oscar season. I don't know. I guess I'm not much on the producing side of, filmmaking, but it just seems like a lot of money. And like they're talking about like 3 different companies are going to come together to try and help make it. Crazy. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Do you think he's just throwing out around his weight at this point? Like, just he's Martin Scorsese. He can get anything done. Just using his name to fund the project.
That that this is like a stunt to try and bankrupt all the big studios, so that like independent films flourish in the years to come. Feel like his last great act as a filmmaker is just to take all the studios down. Though I don't know that it's true. It certainly seems like he's trying something like it because, I mean, damn, $200 million. Are they trying to like de-age De Niro again and then like age
to a baby form? I have no idea.
Like, are they like doing everything CG?
Yeah.
I guess that would probably make it cheaper. Are they doing everything absolutely real? Like, are they actually killing people? Like,
you'd have to pay a lot for that.
Like, I just don't know. On something like this story, why do they need $200 million? I feel like there definitely is a cheaper way. I mean, obviously they're paying for Scorsese and they're paying for De Niro and for DiCaprio, who are meteoric right now in their popularity. But I mean, what about the story is so expensive? I don't know.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah. Like a hefty Yes, I'm sure we'll enjoy it a lot, and the studios will just cry as they're looking at their books.
Yeah,
but I hope this film gets made. I'm excited to see it, but based on the plot alone, I don't see it need a $200 million budget. That's a budget of like an Avengers film with an ensemble cast of everyone well known, plus hundreds of thousands of hours of CGI work. And I don't think it has Leo, Robert De Niro, or Wood, and he want to work for free. They're like best buds. I don't think he's paying them too much, like the highest he could. Leo, I'm sure he's getting paid a lot here, but there's no grand CG effector. I'm not sure what they need the budget for, but we'll see. And when the film releases, because I'm sure it's going to get made because of Scorsese. But that's just me. Anything else?
How much?
Something, Doerge. I missed it. Come a little closer.
How much did the Irish?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
At the end, it came up to like 200 mil, I think.
Yeah, and that was mostly
like all said and done.
Yeah, I'm worried about that again.
Yeah, but we'll see. Hopefully, this film isn't 3.5 hours, but Scorsese can do anything he wants right now. And our last topic for today is on Twitter. James Gunn, during his coronavirus break, he did a little something fun, and he listed 27 sequels that he thought were better than the original film. James Gunn, the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, Slither, a bunch of other small films, and right now he's working on The Suicide Squad. That's his recent film that he's working on. And he released his whole list. Some of the films include The Empire Strikes Back, Shrek 2, The Dark Knight, and a bunch more. His whole list is, I'll send it in the chat if you guys want to check it out, everyone that's watching. What are some of your favorite sequels that are better than the original? Can you think of any off the top of your head, guys? Or
I mean, he put just about all.
They can be from his list.
The only one that I can think of. Oh man, from his list, Toy Story 2 is the one that stands out to me as one that I definitely agree with wholeheartedly. I mean, the other ones for sure, but that one I definitely have more enjoyment with the second installment. The only one that's on there that I can think of right now that he didn't put on for me, and this is gonna, it may not be as high art as some of the ones on this, but Kung Fu Panda 2 is far and away better than Kung Fu Panda 1, in my humble opinion. But
really, I agree.
And that's not a commentary on the first one's quality. I do think Kung Fu Panda 1 is a great movie, and it's a lot of fun, and it actually does some good things. But I think Kung Fu Panda 2 just took everything and ramped it up, and I really enjoy the art style of Kung Fu Panda 2 and the way that they show certain things, and it just, that movie blows me away in a way that I didn't expect a movie starring Jack Black as a fat panda would do. But that's my perspective on that one. But other than that, he took all of the safe picks. I mean, who in their right
mind? Yeah, he took a lot of safe picks.
Batman Begins is better than The Dark Knight. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, Empire Strikes Back, Blade Runner 2049. Those are all pretty good picks. I mean, the rest of them are like, I don't think Evil Dead 2 is better than the first Evil Dead, personally. So I disagree with him on that. I can't really think of any of the big sequels. I mean, all the Lord of the Rings movies are basically equally as good as the other.
I agree.
Yeah. He took a lot of the great ones. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of too many. There's a bunch of animated ones I want to say, but they're all made by the same creative team. Like maybe How to Train Your Dragon 2. I'd say I'd probably like it better than the first one. It has that darker tone, just like Kung Fu Panda 2 by DreamWorks. Pixar sequels I'm not a fan of. Like Incredibles 2. I like the original better with that on that side.
Yeah, I can get that.
Creed 2, I think I probably like Creed 2 more than Creed. That's all I can think of right now. But yeah, that was a fun little game that he had on his Twitter, and everyone was commenting. And I appreciate that in this time that he had us doing that little game. But that's all the film news we have for this week. And well, right now, Jackson can announce his film club pick for next week. So, what's our watching material, Jackson?
Oh, for this week, the official Film Week Film Club movie is going to be Killing Them Softly, a 2012 Brad Pitt neo-noir crime drama.
It got added to Netflix recently.
Yes, it did get added to Netflix recently. It was on there shortly after its release. I want to say in 2014, but then they took it off in the license. But I guess they renewed it. It's an interesting one. I've never seen it personally, but I remember when it came out, I was too young to see R-rated movies, so I never got the chance. But for some reason, I really like the aesthetic of it, even though it is a little, on its surface, it does look pretty basic. It's got Killing Them Softly in big white Times New Roman letters, and it's just Brad Pitt with slick back hair and a leather jacket and a shotgun. Sometimes that's all you need. And the reason I'm fascinated by this one is because this movie's now 8 years old. It, on the surface level, from what I've looked, doesn't really have a whole lot wrong with it. It was definitely a success, $15 million budget, $37 million box office return. It was up for the Palme d'Or. It was critically well received, 73%, and it seems like generally the critical consensus was that it was a pretty good crime drama neo-noir. It's got some big heavy-hitting actors. It's got Brad Pitt. It's got the late James Gandolfini, Ray Liotta, a lot of the people you see in these types of movies. But it seems like it hasn't quite had the staying power of other noirs, or at least other movies in the crime genre. And I think it would be interesting to go look at it and to see, why is it that we don't talk about this movie anymore? Is there a nugget of gold in it somewhere that we could look at and say that this was, a kind of little secret gem to come out of 2012, or is there a reason that it's kind of been forgotten? Andrew Dominic is the director behind this. This is his. He did the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Thank you. But apart from that, this is his last feature, narrative feature film that he's done for a while. So, it'll be interesting to see what
and
this movie like.
It's literally half the length of the last movie we watched.
That's
Thank
true.
God.
I didn't notice that, but yeah, it is. It should be a quick one. So, Yeah, I'm interested to see what you guys think about just the cinematography and the aesthetic, because that's what drew me in initially, and whether we think this deserves a place in the discussion of great neo-noir or great crime dramas of the 21st century, or whether it's justifiably kind of forgotten.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I just saw it on there because I just added it, so I'm glad that it was. I just added it to my list on Netflix, so I'm glad I can see it this week and have a reason to see it. And hopefully, Film Week can give Killing Them Softly the recognition it deserves, if it does deserve it, next week when we talk about it. So we'll talk about it then. I'm your host, Samuel Teyssier. We're signing out. Jackson, Guido, anything you want to say before we leave?
No, go watch Killing Them Softly. I'm excited.
And Michael Doerge.
Have a good. Wash your hands. Stay safe.
Amen. We'll see you guys next week. Watch Killing Them Softly. We'll see you then.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.